Remnant Church and online community. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Remnant's midweek refuel, where we seek out the ancient wisdom so that we can at least pretend to be wise. Listen to the teacher of Proverbs as he tells his students the secret to at least appearing wise. He writes in Proverbs 17:28, quote, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues," unquote. We need more of that in this world, don't we? Yes, I do indeed sense the irony behind reading that particular proverb and teaching this lesson, but I've always been God's jester, so here we go. Do you know how else you can look wise? That's right. You can look wise by clicking the like and subscribe buttons down below. You will practically glow with wisdom each time you click that mouse. I'm teasing, but seriously, every time you hit those buttons for us, you help us reach thousands of more people in the name of Jesus Christ and the wisdom that Christ offers. So I thank you. These lessons are gratis, they are free, and they always will be. If the Lord does prompt you to donate, you can give directly to Remnant Church through the tithing portal and donations link that is in the description below. All gifts given to Remnant Church are tax deductible. They are looking for a land and would appreciate any and every penny donated so that they could acquire it. I receive no monetary increase from these donations that happen here. Remnant is full of beautiful, orthodox, and solid Bible-believing Christians with a fervor to reach the lost in the name of the Lord in these dark days. If you are a regular with the refuel lessons, then you know that last week we wrapped up the reading with Augustine describing the dangers and the pitfalls of being praised for some work or skill that we have. He wrote, quote, "If, however, he rejoices more at being praised than at having the gift for which he is praised, then his praise too runs counter to your reproaches," unquote. Augustine realizes that praise is needed. It's a needed thing. But he also realizes that our sin makes us receive that praise in a potentially skewed manner or potentially skewed way. Someone might say that you are a good teacher. They might even say you're a great teacher or praise you for some other skill that God has given you, engineering, mathematics, singing, whatever the case may be. For some, that praise will result in the teacher or the skilled person becoming more aware of what does work and what does help his art to progress. The praise helps him, and the praise helps his students. This knowledge propels him forward, and he uses that very same praise to refine his craft further. Praise can be a boon. For others, however, praise goes straight to their head and praise becomes a bane. They receive praise and it increases their narcissism and their pride and their egos and their self-interest and all of that. This type of praise, when received incorrectly, stagnates and cripples the receiver of the praise. They get what we call a big head. They become arrogant, and worst of all, their gift or art stagnates or declines because of it. Or worse, the gift is applied only for selfish and self-interested ends. Jesus tells us what happens when talents are not used correctly. He says, quote, "For whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken away from them," unquote. We went over pride and gifts well enough last week, so we don't need to do it again. And to be honest, I don't want to rehash the same material this week. Even while these chapters are indeed focused on how to view and deal with praise and pride, I noticed something about these paragraphs, well, the whole book actually, that I think the world has lost and I think is actually more important than dealing with pride. Wisdom's like a fine wine. You can drink it straight off the vine, but time and work and patience are needed to create vintage. Memorizing Proverbs does not a wise man make, unfortunately. A lifetime of putting Proverbs into practice is what makes a man wise. Today, I don't see the same lifetime longing and endeavor to attain wisdom that I saw in the generations previous and older than myself. Now, to think that the older generations all sought wisdom, well, that would be ridiculous indeed, a complete disregard for reality. But it does seem to me that there was a significantly larger percentage of the populace who understood the lifelong nature of wisdom, whether they partook of it or not. They at least honored those that did and understood that those that did were climbing a ladder that they didn't even want to climb. What I particularly notice is that even the people who did not seek wisdom for themselves were impressed with the people who did. At least that showed a little bit of wisdom. Maybe I'm far off the mark. Maybe I perceive things improperly. But today, it just feels as though the generations under Generation X have been programmed intentionally, not just to ignore wisdom completely, but to belittle and detest those who do give their lives to the pursuit of wisdom. It has become nearly impossible to even have a decent conversation online simply because opinion has been lauded as wisdom, or over wisdom in some cases. Wisdom is a pearl of great price. Opinion, well, everyone's got one of those, as well as you know how the story goes. Wisdom comes after the explosion. Knowledge itself brought you to the explosion. Wisdom keeps you from blowing up in the same way again. Augustine says, quote, "In respect of other sorts of temptation, I have some power to examine myself. In this, almost none," unquote. Augustine is wise enough to realize that he has a spiritual blind spot. He has done the hard spiritual work of analyzing his life and soul to gain wisdom through the lenses of wisdom literature and the teachings and tradition of the church. Knowledge gives you access to the same thing everyone else in the world has access to, the facts that exist within the moment. Wisdom, however, separates you from the flock. Wisdom, rooted in teaching and experience, opens up the past and future moments, though through a glass darkly, as the scripture says, and gifts the wisdom seeker with varying degrees of prophecy and retrospection. Knowledge is the fact that 60 million babies have indeed been sacrificed since the 1970s in America. Wisdom is the awareness that culture, wisdom, knowledge, and civility itself have all been diminished by our failure to respect and uphold the knowledge and wisdom of God. When I think of wisdom books, Confessions is up there within the top 5 at least. It is a book of wisdom because it uses observable knowledge to arrive at invisible wisdom. Think back to the invisible God lesson that we did a few weeks back. One cannot see the ego, yet you know it when it manifests itself. You can't take pride and analyze it with an EKG machine, but you still experience the thrill of it within yourself and the nausea you feel when you spot it in someone else. Narcissism and selfishness cannot be analyzed with an O-scope. They can only be experienced by a moral entity with the propensity for wisdom. They are invisible to knowledge, but they become giant and hideous through the exercise of wisdom. Knowledge has led poor St. Augustine to this startling statement. He says, quote, "I have some power to examine myself. In this, almost none," unquote. Believe it or not, there was a time when people went down to the altar, encountered wisdom there, and then went on to live lives that were, in essence, 180 degrees different than the life they had lived before encountering wisdom. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope I'm wrong. But today feels as though many people go to church for the consumer-oriented programs that the church offers for them and their children. I have always had people tell me that they were church shopping. That's consumerism. And it says to me, quote, "What can the church do for me?" Unquote. Wisdom itself taught me years ago that when it comes to the church, I am going to find one that aligns with my spiritual experience and my spiritual knowledge. And then I ask, "Dear God, what can I do for you and your church?" Not what can you do for me. Gone are the days of changed lives and restored fortunes. I hope that's not true. Or rather, gone are the days in which we and the rest of culture even desire such beautiful and gorgeous things. American culture is in the pig pen eating curds. We took our spiritual inheritance, and we had one, a great one. We took our spiritual inheritance, the same inheritance that made us the greatest nation the world had ever seen, and we spent it on abortion and perversion. Quote, "He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.'" Wisdom's a beautiful thing when it finally comes. Today, we like to be forgiven. Well, who wouldn't? We like to be loved. Well, who wouldn't? We like to be praised. Well, who wouldn't? We do not want to be told that we are broken, blind, lost, chained, and wretched sinners doomed to die a miserable death that we have earned with every slight we have ever made towards Lady Wisdom. We enjoy a concert, and of course we enjoy the spectacle of deliverance ministries. What we do not want is a yoke around our necks, even a yoke that has been promised to be easy on us, that pulls us daily, moment by moment, into the path of wisdom itself. We have become our own gods, and the world we have created, well, it reflects us, doesn't it? It is insane. We hate the pig curds, we really do, but we aren't willing to go back to Dad's house, are we? Dad has expectations, and Dad requires that his children acquiesce to Lady Wisdom. We used to know we were broken. We used to know we were needy. I think we might be getting too thoughtless to even see ourselves clearly anymore. What is truly amazing is that the more broken we are and the more broken we become, the more obstinate and arrogant and prideful we become. Very strange. In order to be wise, one must be able to at least wish to see themselves truthfully. In the most revealing section of today's reading, Augustine writes, quote, "What but that I take pleasure in being praised? But I take more pleasure in the truth than in being praised. If I were given the choice of being on the one hand mad or mistaken on all matters and still praised by all men, or on the other hand of being firm in my wits, firmly convinced of the truth and reviled by all, I know what I would choose." Unquote. Do you know what you would choose? I want to take the path less chosen every time. I want to walk the path of wisdom. I want to submit to the easy yoke of Jesus Christ. Wisdom cannot be had by reading Proverbs or Ecclesiastes. Only information can. And That's where the disconnect happens. I hope the Lord touches your mind and bridges that gap today. But if you put that knowledge into practice, then in time it will blossom and become a thing of beauty and of grace. Listen to Proverbs 3:13-18. The teacher says, "Blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding, for she is more profitable than silver and yields better returns than gold. She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are peace. She is a tree of life to those who take hold of her. Those who hold her fast will be blessed." So, let us turn to the knowledge of Augustine and see if it leads us to a little bit of wisdom. We're going to be reading from Book 10, chapters 37-38, and you can get your free copy from the Gutenberg Project, link down below. "I am tested by these temptations every day, O Lord. I am tempted incessantly. The tongue of man is a furnace that burns every day. You bid us be continent in respect of this sort of temptation also. Give what you command and command what you will. You know my heart's groaning and my eyes flood over this matter, nor can I readily infer how far I am cleansed from this pestilence. And I fear greatly my hidden faults, which are known to your eyes, but not to my own. In respect of other sorts of temptation, I have some power to examine myself, in this almost none. In the case of carnal pleasures and of curiosity for superfluous knowledge, I can see how far I have managed to curb my mind when I do without the objects of my desire, either of my own choice or because they are not there. Then I can ask myself how much or how little of an imposition it is not to have them. Even in the cases of riches, which are desirable as a means to minister to one or two or all three of these lusts, if the mind cannot decide so long as it has them whether or not it contemns them, it can let go of them to test itself. But what can we do about going without praise and testing ourselves out in that respect? What a hard life it would be! How savage and inhuman if no one were to know us who did not detest us! What greater madness can be said or conceived? And if praise is and should be the usual companion of a good life and good works, we should no more abandon its company than we should abandon a good life. But I cannot perceive how calmly or how badly I do without something, unless it is not there. What is it then, O Lord, that I confess to you in respect of this sort of temptation? What but that I take pleasure in being praised? If I were given the choice of being on the one hand mad or mistaken on all matters and still praised by all men, or on the other hand of being firm in my wits, firmly convinced of the truth and reviled by all, I know what I would choose. I would not, however, have another man's praise for me increase my pleasure in any good quality of mine, but increase it does, I confess, whereas criticism diminishes it. When I am troubled over this wretched trait of mine, a justification sidles up to me. What sort of a justification? You know, O Lord. For it makes me uncertain. You have bidden us be continent, that is, to withhold our love from certain things. But you have bidden us also be just. And justice is the standard against which we should measure our love. Nor have you willed it that we should love only you, but that we should love our neighbor also. Often I find myself taking pleasure in my neighbor's progress or prospects of it. When I take pleasure in his intelligent praise of something, and likewise I am saddened by his lack of progress when I hear him criticizing what he does not understand or what is good. Sometimes I am even saddened by praise of myself, either when things which I dislike in myself are praised, or when lesser and lighter goods are valued at more than they are worth. But again, how do I know whether I am thus affected? Because I do not wish to disagree about myself with one who praises me. Not because I'm concerned for his benefit, but because those goods which I do like in myself are all the sweeter to me when another likes them as well. There's a sense in which it is not I who am praised when the praise does not correspond to my own view of myself, when either those things are praised that I dislike or those things are praised that I like less? Am I thus uncertain of myself in this matter? In you, O truth, I see that it is right that I should be moved by praise of myself, not for my own sake, but for my neighbor's benefit. Whether I am so moved, I do not know. In this matter, I know myself less than I know you. I beg you, my God, make me also known to myself, so that I may confess to my brothers as they prepare to pray for me what I find wanting in myself. Let me question myself again more diligently. If it is for my neighbor's benefit that I am moved when I am praised, why am I less moved if another person is unjustly criticized than if I am? Why am I more stung by an insult to myself than to another person, even if it is cast at them no less unjustly in my presence? Do I not know this also? Is it only left for me to deceive myself and live a lie in heart and tongue in your presence? Put all such madness far from me, O Lord, lest my own mouth become the oil of sinners and anoint my head. I am a poor and needy, but better off when I groan in secret, dissatisfied with myself and seeking your mercy, till what is lacking in me be restored and reach its fulfillment in the peace that is unknown to the eye of the proud. But the words that proceed from men's mouths and the deeds that become known among men carry a most perilous temptation of their own. This arises out of our love of being praised. We love to beg good opinions of men, then scrape together these opinions to bolster our private sense of our own superiority. When I am tempted by this love of praise and rebuke it, it glories in the fact, even though I am rebuking it in myself. Often, indeed, it glories more vainly still in its own contempt of vainglory. Then this love of praise ceases to glory in the very contempt of glory, seeing as it does not contemn what it glories in. Over my lifetime, our knowledge has grown exponentially since I was a child. In my time alone, we have been introduced to personal computers, the internet, mobile phones, GPS systems, genetic engineering, and CRISPR or DNA reprogramming. We take aliens seriously today, and we now have our sex assigned to us at the hospital, because how would we possibly know otherwise? Leave that to the smart people. Knowledge has grown. Wisdom definitely has not. We threw wisdom out of the court systems and out of the school systems. And now we have school shootings and a government that would like your 12-year-old to be able to dismember themselves without your permission. Knowledge, high. Wisdom, all-time low. A friend of mine, who is a pastor, tells this story, and I think, even though it is a little risque, that it captures the truth of the wisdom-allergic and wisdom-hating culture in which we live. He tells this story. There was a woman sitting at a bar. A man came over and said, can I buy you a drink? To which the woman replied, no thanks, I'm married. The man did not look dejected at all. Instead, he offered the woman $1 million to spend the night with him intimately. She says, that's a lot of money. I have to think about it. The man stares at his drink for a moment and then turns with a smile to the woman and with a sly smile says to her, how about for $1? The woman, looking angry and indignant, throwing the drink in his face, says, what kind of a woman do you think I am? To which the man, without hesitation, replied, we have already determined what kind of woman you are. We are just negotiating, unquote. My mother used to have a similar saying. When I would want some album, some movie, or some other form of entertainment, Mom would take a peek at it and say, oh no, son, that has garbage in it. One day, when I was getting particularly bent out of shape and not getting my own way, my mother explained it like this to me. Brace yourself, my mother is a wisdom battering ram. She said, quote, How much manure would you like in your dinner tonight, son? A little bit or a lot? I chose the path of wisdom. Jesus is the wisdom, the Word, and the Logos through which the God-created universe in which we dwell was formed. To know wisdom is to know Jesus. To embrace wisdom is to encounter God Himself. Once more, from the teacher, we hear this, quote, "Wisdom is a shelter as money is a shelter. But the advantage of knowledge is this, wisdom preserves those who have it." Unquote. Of all the things that wisdom has gifted me, there's none so great as this. Christ is King. Hail to the King.